Good evening, everyone. I hereby call the meeting to order. It's 6 p.m. Let me go ahead and start with agenda item number 2, calling roll from my right to the left. If you could go and indicate that you're here.
Jessica Ochoa, present.
Carlos Margo, present.
Anita Chavez, present.
Alisa Peña, present.
Celso Gomez Jr., present.
We have quorum. We do have a board member that's out today, and that's Dr. Rosalba Hernandez. Agenda item number 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. If I could please have everybody please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. You can please sit down. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Secretary, do we have any public comment? Anybody?
Yes, we do. We have 3 for today. If we can please have Ms. Amy Leal make your way to the podium, please.
As you're making your way to the podium, a friendly reminder that those that are speaking do have 3 minutes. Our Vice President will inform you after your 3 minutes are up. Please state your name. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. I am here not just as a concerned parent, but as someone speaking for the parents and community of Flores Elementary. We are all here together to show our strong support for Mr. Leroy Garcia, and we ask you to bring him back as our principal at Flores Elementary. Mr. Garcia has shown time and time again that he is more than just a leader. He truly cares about our children and works hard for them. Because of him, our school has grown and improved into an A-rated campus. His focus on making the school safe and caring has helped our children feel supported and able to do their best. Mr. Garcia doesn't just run the school. He listens, helps, and works to make sure all the students and families and teachers get what they need. He is a role model for everyone. He shows us that every child matters, every family should be heard, and every teacher should have support to do their job well. I have personally seen how Mr. Garcia's leadership has helped my own children. As a parent, I know that he made sure my kids got the extra help and support they needed to succeed. Where they were struggling or doing great, Mr. Garcia gave them what they needed to grow. My children have done well in school because of his care. He has created a school where children feel like they belong, and we don't want to lose that. I am not the only one who feels this way. Parents, please stand up. The decision of central office to place Mr. Garcia in administrative leave has left us upset and with a great void. His absence is felt every day by the teachers, staff, and most of all, by the students. We believe strongly in Mr. Garcia's leadership. He is important to the success of Flores Elementary. Removing him is not just a loss for him, but for every child, teacher, and family in our school. May I approach to hand deliver a letter from one of our students, Joy Garza. She wrote this letter on her own for the superintendent.
Yes, you can pass it to Blanca or Mari, if you could give it to her.
I urge you to think about the huge amount of support Mr. Garcia has in this community. Please make sure that Flores Elementary keeps thriving and reinstate Mr. Leo Garcia as Flores Elementary principal. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretary Peña, our next speaker.
Marin Miller, if you can please make your way to the podium, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed board members, my name is Marin Miller. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I stand before you to express my deep concern regarding the recent termination of Palmview High School girls basketball head coach. Our coach has been an incredible leader and mentor for our team, and her impact on our program and players is immeasurable. Under her guidance, we achieved a historic milestone, winning the district championship for the first time in La Joya ISD history. This achievement is a testament to her dedication, hard work, and unwavering belief in each one of us. But our coach's influence extends far beyond the scoreboard. She has taught us not only the fundamentals of the game, but has also fostered a sense of unity and sisterhood among all the girls. Her positive coaching style has brought us together as a cohesive team, encouraging us to support one another both on and off the court. She embodies the qualities of a great leader. She is inspiring, approachable, and fully dedicated to our growth as athletes and individuals. I would like to share a personal experience to underscore just how vital her leadership is. Previously, I participated in the Palmview High School volleyball program where I faced bullying and harassment from the head coach. That experience was incredibly difficult and robbed me of my love for the sport. In stark contrast, our basketball coach has created an environment where every player feels valued and empowered. She has instilled in us resilience, teamwork, and respect, lessons that resonate far beyond basketball. The decision to terminate our coach has left many of us feeling uncertain and disheartened. Her leadership has transformed our team and our lives, and we hope that the board will reconsider this decision. Her return would not only mean the world to us, but also to the entire Palmview High School community. Thank you for considering our plea. We appreciate your attention to this matter and sincerely hope for a favorable resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Secretary Peña, our next speaker.
Nicole Flores, if you want to make your way to the podium, please.
Hi, I just want to start off in saying good afternoon and thank you for letting me speak here. I'm Nicole Flores and I'm the captain of the girls basketball team over there at Palmview High School. And I'm a senior, it's my last year. And I've known the girls head basketball coach since I was in elementary school. I grew up with her. I attended all of her basketball camps and watching her conduct practices throughout the years, I've learned so much from the girls head varsity coach. All of our current teammates and I were looking forward to finishing our year with the coach who started our journey with, a coach who never gave up on us, never quitted on us, who believed in us, and from all of this, it's just been a democracy until she was let go from her position. My teammates and myself are strongly believe that we deserve a coach who's been with us and known us. The last year we won district championships, and the previous year before that we had playoffs appearances, and we deserve to have a coach that led us to district championships. With the season starting in a week, we feel that without a coach, it's a disservice to her and to our current players. She's worked within creating such a successful program. The team feels that we're not taken into consideration with the decision that you have made. How can a personal feeling of one parent overweigh 20 other parents of the team? We ask that you consider reinstating her as the position of head girls basketball varsity before the season starts for good of the girls Palmview basketball team. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Secretary Peña, do we have any other speakers?
No, we do not.
That concludes our public comment section of today's meeting, of this evening's meeting. Next item on the agenda is agenda item 5.1, recognition of La Jolla ISD Custodial Department for Custodian Appreciation Day, October 2nd, 2024. If I could have Ms. Dr. Geary approach the podium. It's all yours, Dr. Geary.
Thank you, Board President, Board, Dr. Sorensen, community. I do have some very exciting things to share. On October 2nd, it was National Custodian Appreciation Day, and I wanted to share just a couple pictures with you of the celebrations that we did for our custodial staff. It's a special occasion dedicated to recognizing their hard work, their ethics, their essential role in taking care of our schools and our families, really, in this way. You can see some of the great things. We had things anywhere from a parade at JFK to we gave them some treats and just wanted to really celebrate who they are. So just wanted to let you know some of the great things and show you some pictures that they just said thank you back. We also have a couple of other great things to share about. Do you have any other questions about the Custodial Appreciation Day last week?
Board members, do we have any questions for Dr. Geary or remarks? Seeing that we don't have any, I will tell you that the few times that I've been on campuses, or I should say the multiple times that I've been on the campuses, we have some of the prettiest campuses, not only outside but inside, and I can assure you that our staff take pride in their buildings, and they own the buildings. It's not where they work, it's home to them. And I can see that not only with the cleanliness of the buildings, but how they are with their children and our students. So thank you for that, and please convey that message, and we're very grateful to all of them.
I will, and additionally, our Director of Custodians is here, Ms. Seismoniak, and some very special custodians for this building. If you could please stand and give a wave.
Yes, please be recognized.
They're kind of shy, but they're just very deserving of the recognition. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, I mean, they're the first people we see in the morning, and our kids see first thing, and the last person they see when they leave the campuses. The gentleman that's over here to my left, I mean, I'm glad I'm friends with him.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to tell you, but he's one of the friendliest men that I know, and so I'm very grateful for that. So again, convey that message, and we're very grateful to your staff.
I will. Thank you so much.
Next.
Board President,
Yes.
I just again also want to reiterate what our board president said. I am so grateful for the hard work that our custodial team does every single day. They provide the environment for our students to learn, and where our teachers and educators can truly do the work of teaching and learning. And so without them, the environment just doesn't exist for our students to do the things that they need to do to learn. And so thank you so much for providing a clean and bright and fantastic environment for our teachers to do their work, for our students to do their work. It is not an easy task. It is hard work every single day. And so thank you to our custodial staff. Thank you, Ludi, for leading this work. We are so grateful. Our buildings are beautiful. Thank you so much.
And they do it with a smile.
They sure
as
do.
well. Everywhere I go, I cannot tell you how very happy I am to see that they have such joy in what they do.
La Jolla Pride. Next.
We also, coming up this next week, we have a very important event. It's called National School Lunch Week. While it's observed annually to promote healthy school choices, school lunches, and this particular week, next week, they're going to offer some extra special kinds of activities. The theme this year has to do with pirates, so it's pretty fun. We found our treasure in National School Lunch Week. And they'll be offering special snacks, games. The principals are going to make announcements on the intercom, just celebrating healthy choices. We all need those reminders, right? And that's this next week. Then the following week is National School Bus Safety Week. We have lots going on in operations this month. And during this week, we focus on utilizing our transportation services safely. So we work with parents, we work with kids, motorists. We actually are doing a partnership with the DPS where they're going to do ride-alongs with us to help promote safe choices and encourage kids. And it's going to be a great focus for our buses and our bus drivers and the entire department. So that's another great event coming up the following week this month.
Dr. Geary, does anyone have any comments or remarks for Dr. Geary at this time regarding any of the 3 initiatives that are going on this week or activities?
Dr. Gary, so having the DPS kind of come to our district, is that something that's new, that we're doing new?
It is, actually. It's something they offered to come and be a partner with us, to offer tips and be just that extra set of eyes for drivers as well as for our director and also for the kids to actually show them, like, we're all in this together and to give us advice. So it is something new.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Dr. Geary? I have one more thing I'd like to say regarding this. So these are 3 exciting activities that we're putting on. I would encourage everyone that's here and that's listening to take part in it. There are some things, our custodians are an extension of our classroom. We need to remember that they are teachers, and many of our students do spend a lot of time with not only our custodians, but also those that provide them meals, and then of course those that drive them to school. So we're very grateful that we have a great team, and it's been nothing but a great experience to meet many of these people. And like I tell you, like I said earlier, they take a lot of pride, not only what they do, but who they represent, and it's this great district of La Jolla. So congratulations to you and your team and your directors. Please convey that message to them.
I will, thank you.
Thank you, Board President. And again, I just want to reiterate to all of our employees in operations and infrastructure, these are some of our hardest working employees every single day, giving 100%, whether it be feeding our children, transporting our children, making sure the environment in which they learn. Those are the things that create the space for our teachers to be able to do the teaching and learning. And so, all of our employees know that without that, it doesn't happen. Without our kids getting there, it doesn't happen. Without our children being fed, it doesn't happen. And without a clean environment, it doesn't happen. And so each one of us plays an essential role. And so these employees in La Jolla ISD are essential to making it happen. Reading and math don't happen without these essential parts. And so thank you to each one of these employees for really contributing to the education of our children holistically. And again, thank you to Mr. Hernandez for making this happen, Mr. Cedillo with a smile, making this happen, and of course, Ludi for your continued hard work. I appreciate all of you. And Mr. Alaniz, I see you back there. I see you. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. I really do. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Geary. If there's nothing else from the board, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is agenda item number 6, superintendent's updates or announcement. Dr. Sorensen, I think we're going to be provided an update by Dr. Little regarding the MAP data.
Yep.
Dr. Little, floor is yours.
Thank you, and I will be joined again by great colleagues Melinda Flores and Sebastian Duque. We come as a trio on these topics. Really happy to share, first, good evening, board and superintendent. We've been talking about MAP. We gave you a preview of sort of what it was and how it worked a few weeks ago, with excitement to be able to come back a few weeks later and actually start looking at data on where we are as a district with our students. And so that's what we want to do here this evening, is share with you and share with the community where we are in terms of performance and achievement at the beginning of the school year. There are a couple things that we would ask everyone to keep in mind. First, this is beginning of year data. The beginning part really matters there. This is not where we will end up. There is a lot of work that we will share with you tonight and that we will continue to share in the coming weeks and months throughout the school year to show how we're going to move these data points to even higher levels of achievement. But this is how campus principals and how teachers can really understand the foundation that we have for this school year and guide our work to make sure that we are seeing improvement over time. Second thing to keep in mind here is this is our primary way that we are progress monitoring where our students are and how we're doing. You will remember sort of last spring and over the summer, the superintendent having conversations and the team leading work to really reduce focus around assessment and create more time in the day for instruction and learning. So MAP then really becomes our key and primary way to understand where our students are right now and to track that progress over time. Because, and you'll hear me say this towards the end, we really want the maximum amount of time each day with students in really strong on grade level instruction. And so we're prioritizing that. And so the available data points that the district may have had in the past from the various assessments that we're using aren't here because we've intentionally prioritized and made this focus. So it's helpful to keep that in mind as we get started. The executive summary here is mostly for folks who may not get to listen tonight or who want to go back and refer to this, just to know, like, here's the sort of one-pager cheat sheet of some major things to take away. But what we really want to spend time tonight is making sure we're all still grounded in what MAP is and how it works, go deep into our beginning of year data, and then talk about what we're doing in response to that data to really support our students. So that's how we've organized this, and that's how we want to spend our time. And just like before, I am very happy and honored to be able to share this with our two colleagues who really lead this work and know it well on a day-to-day basis. So Ms. Flores is going to come up next.
Thank you, Dr. Little. And so as the first time that we are administering our beginning of the year assessment for La Joya ISD, just so that you know, half of the students in the state of Texas also took this assessment, as did the students at La Joya. We started our beginning of the year window on September the 9th, and we ended the window at the end of September. And these were the different assessments that were provided across our district. The reading assessment was administered K-12, and our math assessment was provided for our K-8 groups. In science, the regular science assessment was also a K-8. Our Algebra 1 assessment was at the high school level, typically, traditionally for our freshmen. Our Algebra 2 was also a high school assessment, as well as the geometry and biology. So it's the first time that you're getting assessment results for more than just a STAR test. And so that's great because we're getting interest and gathering data of students, not just for a state assessment, but one of the things that we had discussed before was the need to have information available for students for post-college readiness as well. And so what we're doing with the information that we did gather is now it's informing the type of instruction we're providing in our classrooms, our goal settings being set, because it's allowing us to monitor the progress of the students and guide that instruction. So at the teacher level, this teacher now gets that informed ability of their child so that they're providing those personalized insights for the specific learning that's needed, whether it's for the differentiation of instruction or how am I planning so that my students are contextualizing what they're learning. And by that it's, what are they going to learn so that they're applying that in a real life situation or applicable to a real world experience? And so that's what we want the learning to be about, not just, plain recall type elements. And again, when we had come here before, we had said we wanted our students to be informed problem solvers. And so that's exactly what it's setting up for. And with that, it's allowing that teacher level also to drive that instruction of what exactly the student needs, because it's personalized information and personalized data for that particular student. And therefore, it's going to help with those goals for those students so that all students are benefiting dependent on that level, being that it's an adaptive assessment. And so as an adaptive assessment, one big clear item is this assessment is not, did you pass or did you fail this assessment? Because it is uniquely designed to guide that student's pathway of learning. Where is that student? So as they took this beginning of the year assessment, if the student was getting the questions correctly, then the assessment through the computer adaptive form of it is making sure that the student is getting more difficult items, trying to figure out that boundary of where is that student, what level are they at. Similarly, if the student's getting incorrect items, then the questions are adapting to their level to try to find, where exactly is that student level at. And again, that's going to inform the instruction that is going to be provided to the students. So again, not just for a 6 weeks assessment, like Dr. Little mentioned, decreasing that amount of time, but really tailoring the need of instruction to all of these students. And as you saw, K-12 in our reading areas, which is a very much needed area. And so in this particular case, once the student is getting, whether it's a more difficult test or an easier pathway, then the exam determines a score, a RIT score for that student. And with that, it again lets the teacher identify where they're at and where we need to grow. And so because of that, today we're bringing you the beginning of the year data, but we do have in January middle of the year assessment. where we're going to, again, be able to check to see where the students are at, because the boundary of the assessment is looking at the students getting to about 50% of the questions. That productive struggle has to be there to inform us where they're at, not what they've previously learned, but where they're at in their learning pathway, individualized. And so we have a few more other items that we're going to share with you. I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Duque for the next levels of performance.
Thank you, Ms. Flores.
Thank you so much, Ms. Flores. I'm going to bring you back to this previous slide that Ms. Flores was reviewing. And just like Ms. Flores said, this is not a pass or fail assessment, but the assessment does provide us a score that we can utilize as an educator to tailor instruction for the student. Bringing your attention to this young child here, and the score of a 218. MAP, like Ms. Flores said, was administered to over half of the students in the state of Texas. That provides us a really good sample of data. And so as our students engage with the assessment, so did half of the student population across the state. Texas serves just roughly over 5.5 million students. So that's a really good sample of data. And so we take that score that the student achieved on this diagnostic assessment. So this is the first of 3 assessments. And so this would be the first time a child receives that score. And we can actually link that score to STAR performance at end of year. One of the things that we want you as a board to understand is that our purpose is to grow our kids and not just prepare them for a STAR assessment, but rather prepare them to be active, productive citizens in the community. And so we need to develop those skills of problem solving that can be utilized. So here, this Lincoln study shows that in the fall, a student with a RIT score of a 218 is actually performing at MEETS level or on grade level. Now keep in mind that as you saw in the previous slide, the child only really answered about half of the questions correctly, and that's because as the student continues to engage with the assessment, they're actually traveling up grade levels and down grade levels as they're answering questions correctly. And so the accuracy, because of the sample of data, is actually very, very good. When we look at how students performed on an end-of-year assessment with regard to MAP, and then how they performed on the end-of-year STAR assessment, it's 80% accurate. So these predictions that we have right now are 80% accurate for the students at BOY. So if 100 students are performing at MEETS level, we can safely say that 80 of these kids will be at MEETS level at end of year on a STAR assessment. So we're going to start reviewing our data. We're going to kind of look at what the data is currently telling us. So for the purposes of this presentation, we actually took that linking study and we tied it to every single student, and we determined whether the child was performing at MEETS grade level, which will remind you is on grade level performance. And so what we have here is our reading data. We'd like to turn your attention to our 8th grade group. Our 8th grade group performed at 58% MEETS level performance. And again, in comparison to STAR. What I want us to focus on is that while 58% of our kids are already at that MEETS level or predicted to perform at that MEETS level, that still leaves 42% of our students that are not on grade level. So that, again, there's still some work and there's still some lifting that needs to be done with regard to preparing our students for end-of-year assessments. Also would like to bring your attention that there is a linking study between MAP growth and 2nd grade reading assessment. So we actually have a very good picture of where our students are in relation to a STAR performance level indicator with regard to MAP. And so 22% of our students that are currently enrolled and engaged with the MAP assessment in 2nd grade are predicted to be at MEETS grade level or above when they take a STAR assessment at the end of 3rd grade. So we have not only this year to grow that student or those students, but we also have all of next school year to be able to grow that number into a really good, robust number. We should also note that for the purposes of the assessment, the MAP reading does not include a writing component. Similar to how STAR would include a writing component, MAP reading does not include a writing component. However, the linking study between the performance in MAP and the performance in STAR has already accounted for that. Therefore, again, 80% accuracy with the predictors within the MAP growth assessment. This is a really neat report that is available to districts, and it's available at the campus level. And we want to give you like a 30,000-foot view of MAP, but we also want you to understand that it's not just a 30,000-foot view of MAP. We can actually take these reports and scale them all the way down to the classroom, down to the student. So every teacher will have access to these reports. This is a really good report that we've been using to determine performance by grade level. As you look at the bands, there's 5 different colors. You have a really dark red, an orange color, there's a yellow, a green, and a blue. So and I'll give you guys a little personal story. So when my son showed up and he showed me his report, I said, green and blue is really, really good, guys. So you did really, really good, and we need to work on this. So this gives us an idea of what we can work on with students on an individual basis. However, if we're a campus or we're a district, we can kind of look for the hot spots of where our call to action is going to be. We're looking for those red areas that we want to grow over the next year, and as we continue to engage with MAP year after year, we should be seeing a decrease in red and orange, and more likely we want to move our kids and push our kids into the yellow, blues, and greens. Next slide is our math performance. I'll call your attention to our presentation on STAR performance that we had a couple of weeks ago, actually about a month ago, where we were very honest and transparent, and we said that there's a struggle in math across the district. What MAP has done is it's reaffirmed what we already knew with our STAR performance. It affirms that there still continues to be a struggle, and where we left off at the end of last school year is where we're starting off this school year. So there is some work to be done in the math classrooms with regards to bringing our kids up and lifting them up to be able to perform both on the end of year MAP assessment and on STAR assessment. There is an outlier, as you can see in this graph. And typically what we do as a district is we identify who our algebra track students are, and these are students that typically engage in a graduation requirement assessment in middle school versus high school. So we have our 8th grade students that will be meeting a graduation requirement at the end of 8th grade, and those typically are really high performing students. And at the beginning of the year, they were actually provided an Algebra 1 assessment. So these are students that engaged in 8th grade mathematics last school year, and now this year are engaging in Algebra 1, and they've only been in class about 8 or 9 weeks. And so, as you can see, their performance is really, really good at the grade level and above. So we have really good expectations for all of our kids. These kids typically are our high performing kids, so that's why we kind of separate them, and we let you guys know that those kids exist. Again, as you see, what we already knew, where we left off, where we picked up, there's a very different picture on this slide as there was in the reading slide. So there's a bigger call to action here. Typically, on the left side of the graph, you see these little bubbles that have percentiles. As we engage with MAP, as we engage with our high quality instructional material, with the work that we're going to put into the classrooms, the percentiles we want to move into anything close to or above the 50th percentile. Anything close to or above the 50th percentile is a good indicator of average performance. One thing that you all as a board need to understand as well is that this is not just a state of Texas assessment. This is a nationwide norm reference assessment. And so when the graph says that our students performed in 37th percentile, that's in comparison to students in the same grade level across the nation. So this is a really, really good indicator of how our kids are going to be competitive beyond high school at La Jolla ISD once they do enter the workforce. So the higher we can get that percentile as a district, the better prepared our students are going to be once they exit the doors of La Jolla ISD. Again, there was no secret in our STAR data. We were struggling. One of the struggles that we pinpointed was our 5th grade science. Really, really good indicator. Again, where we left off is where we begin. So as you can see, we have a very low performance in our 5th grade science at 7%. Again, there is a lot of things that have gone on in classrooms and across campuses that may have affected the performance of science. And I'll name some just to be clear and transparent with you. Many times we've heard situations where the science time was taken away because we're going to focus on math and reading because you're not tested in Science Star in 6th grade or in 7th grade. So children lost out in a little bit of science time or social studies time because, again, STAR prep. The redesign of our assessment mentality has taken us from, or moving us from STAR prep more into, we're going to use our assessments and we're going to only administer them throughout the specific times throughout the year to gather the data needed to make sure that our kids are growing and that teaching and learning is exactly what is occurring in the classroom.
Mr. Duque, who makes that decision?
I'm sorry?
You as a group, do you make that decision on the
The assessment calendar?
Yes.
Well, we took direction from our brand new superintendent back in February when she saw we used to have a book, what was like a 45-page book that came out of my office, our assessment collaborative, and we brought it down to 3 pages.
Great.
And so we've really narrowed down our focus on assessments, and it's good, high-quality assessments that are going to give us the data that we're going to need to impact not only the teaching and learning in the classroom, but also end-of-year performance.
And so to answer your question, Board President, the focus went back to teaching and learning. The focus went back to instruction. And the reduction of time on assessing just to assess. Because this is a clear indicator that we were not spending time on instruction. And so we were losing time, especially in the elementary space, on precious things like social studies and science. Also our enrichment activities in elementary school around art, around music, around things that we know develop students holistically. And so the more that we can spend time on all subjects in elementary school, not just drill, kill, like reading math, drill, kill, reading math, we know that that grows our children holistically. And so we have not only reduced our assessments, but really put the focus back on authentic teaching and learning.
Great. Thank you.
Two quick things to add to that to help this. Before I even talk about the 2 things, we can all acknowledge and accept that that is unacceptable. Like, we cannot have single-digit sort of achievement in any of our areas, and we recognize and know that. As Mr. Duque said, we want to be transparent about that. We're not going to hide from it, but we are going to sort of face it head on. In addition to what you just heard Mr. Duque and the superintendent say, 2 other things to sort of call back from previous conversations. We have new curriculum in pre-K, and in the K-5 space, so this population of teachers and students, we have new math curriculum and we have new science curriculum. So we are asking people to change the way they're thinking about instruction from, hey, I'm just going to really focus on like facts and recall, as you heard Ms. Flores say, to I'm becoming an inquisitive sort of critical thinker. I'm exploring concepts. I'm investigating. I'm taking a different approach to that. But the second piece of that, it's the same teacher who's doing the new math curriculum that's also doing the new science curriculum. We've got to keep that in mind when we come back in a couple of weeks to talk about Lone Star governance and goal setting, to really grapple with how much can an individual sort of change at any given point in time, and at what level of progress can we see while they're in the midst of changing everything they do in 2 of their contents. So like that's just some backdrop for this data. Obviously, you and the community have to hold us accountable to when we're standing here in February showing you January data that it doesn't look like this. But we did want to start the conversation today just with you and the community really having context about part of what's contributing to that.
Well, and I think the reason that I brought that comment up is because I wanted folks to understand that it's a team of you 3 doing it, and then of course with the assistance of staff, superintendent, the teacher, the school, everyone's involved. It's not just one person making that decision. So absolutely. I appreciate that. I mean, that's amazing. So I'm compliments to you, Dr. Little, your team, and what you're doing and allowing the teachers to have input. That's very important.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Duque's coming back.
So picking up with what Dr. Little was saying with regards to our performance, one thing that I really like as a former science teacher myself, I was a 9th grade biology teacher, is I really like the fact that at BOY, our 9th grade students are at 46% or projected at 46% meets. That to me is exciting, because if we're there already, how much further can we get them over the course of this school year by the time we get to end of year performance, right? And so we've had really good conversations with regards to what is it going to take to get that performance to that level. Well, it's going to take really good teaching and learning. It's going to take really good hands-on activities, because in science, you can't just have lecture. It has to be, I've done it in a lab. I've applied this concept using a laboratory experience in the classroom. So that's going to be really, really great. You all should also know, as I transition to the next slide, is that MAP allows us to also track our growth in 6th and 7th grade science. So it's no longer we're only administering a norm reference assessment in 8th grade and 5th grade. Now we can actually start administering an assessment in 5th grade and carry it out through until the end of course in biology. So we're able to track student performance in science in 6th and 7th grade as well. Again, with regards to this slide, you want a good distribution of colors. However, as a district, we would really like to see more yellows, blues, and greens, because that means that our kids are trending right of the 50th percentile. So when you think of percentiles, just think of how I explained it to my own son is, if you're on the 50th percentile, that means that you did better than 49% of the kids in the nation that took the same test. However, 50% of the kids that took the test also did better than you. So it's kind of like a competition against yourself. How much higher can you get within that percentile? And it's going to take work in the classroom, and it's going to take good, solid teaching and learning.
And this is where, Board President, if you'll allow me, I always want to give incredible kudos to our teachers who are really working very hard right now to engage with new curriculum, both in math and science, right? And so I know when we went through Lone Star governance training, we did talk about implementation and what happens occasionally as you do implementation and implementation dips that may happen. It's not around low expectations. We have incredibly high expectations, but as our teachers are learning new things and working through new curriculum, occasionally growth takes a minute before we see growth as you're implementing new curriculum and learning new things, as our adults are learning new things. So we will see growth. It just may take a second as our teachers are working so hard, and they really are. I mean, I'm visiting campuses all the time, and our teachers are doing an incredible job. But I just really do want to keep lifting them up as they're doing the hard work in the classrooms.
Thank you for that. Mr. Duque?
Thank you, sir. Again, in the interest of transparency, for the most part, in previous years, our 5th grade science instruction was provided in Spanish. However, students were assessed at the end of year in English. And so that led to, I guess, a little bit of stress on the child, or were we really preparing them for excellence at the end of year, right? And so because of the new dual language program, science is now being provided both in English and Spanish. So that's going to help us, again, increase our kids' knowledge in science, and hopefully that's going to translate into really good end-of-year performance. Again, we're going to come back to, this is not just a district administrator program for us to look at data. This data is going to go down, all the way down into the classroom, down to the student level. So this is a slew of reports that are available within the MAP growth platform that provide district administrators like me a bird's eye view of a campus performance. I can actually transition into a school administrator role within the platform and look at how my campus as a whole is performing. Then I can go and look at individual teacher performance across classrooms in the same grade level, same content. Furthermore, there is a specialized report for every student. So I'm going to take you back to what Ms. Flores said at the beginning of the presentation, is that this is not a one-size-fits-all assessment. This assessment is tailored to every individual student's abilities. So the first question is a non-grade level item, and as the student engages within the assessment, as they answer items correctly, they either progress between grade levels that are above their current grade level, or they progress to grade levels that are below, depending on the skill that's being assessed in that particular item. So again, these reports at the student level are tailored for each individual student's ability. One of the really neat things that I like about that student report is it offers us a projection of where a student is going to end up at end of year. And so in this slide, what I really like is it provides the achievement of the student in comparison to the nation. Again, this child is at the 46th percentile. Provides a star projection, which is that second box right underneath. And again, if we keep doing what we normally do with kids in the classroom and the child is able to maintain, so it's a two-way street here. It's the teacher does what they've consistently done, the child is able to maintain and hang on, then the child will remain at an approaches grade level performance at the end of the school year. However, we do a little bit of out of the box thinking, and we have teachers that engage with the kids, they interact with the kids, they know the students. By now, they are able to tell you, I know I can push this child and I can push them this far. And so they're allowed to go in and adjust goals individually by student to make sure that we're pushing, and we're pushing just enough to make sure that our kids are able to grow and learn as they're intended to do when they come into our campuses. And I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Little.
Thank you, Mr. Duque. I don't have like a laser, but I want to draw your attention to one part of this slide. If we look in the bottom left of the slide, we see that red box around achievement 46th percentile. To the immediate right of that is blank. That's because it's the first time we're administering this assessment. When we come back in January, what's going to be super amazing for teachers is there's going to be a data point there as well to say how much did the student grow between the beginning of year and the middle of year. And what we have to keep in mind, and I had to like arm wrestle Mr. Duque to get to present this slide because I think it's the best one in the whole presentation. And it's really like where the magic happens in the work. And MAP has a beautiful way to say this. If we want atypical growth, we must have atypical instruction. Because on average, what's going to happen is this student who's sitting at the 46th percentile, if they grow just in general like every other student does, they're going to stay exactly at the 46th percentile. Yes, they learn more from September to May, but they learn just enough to keep pace and hold their position in line. What we need to do is to make sure they're accelerating in their journey and we're exceeding their growth projections, that's the upward curve here on this chart, so that we can move them from approaches to meets, from the 46th percentile to something much higher. And so that's the day-to-day work that teachers are doing, campus leaders are doing, and we're working to support, is to make sure that we have accelerated growth. What we absolutely have to avoid is the bottom curve on this slide. If a student doesn't just have average growth, what we're going to see, unfortunately, is what we showed you a few weeks ago with our verified F-rated campus, where we actually go backwards. That 46th percentile at the beginning of the year drops to 40, 35, something lower at the end of the year because we didn't even keep pace enough to hold you where you are. So this is part of what we're talking to principals about, they're working with teachers on, we're working to support, is to make sure, as you've heard us talk about goal setting, that we're pushing as hard as we can with the right supports, because the only way La Jolla gets to excellence for every student is with phenomenal growth for every student.
And Dr. Little, can I just say, and with phenomenal growth for every student means phenomenal instruction every single day for every student.
That's exactly right. And that brings us back to something that we've shared with you before, which is our focus. So again, like our strategy for the year, our instructional framework is in place exactly to achieve what the superintendent just laid out. Like, how do we have the best instruction possible in La Jolla ISD? We've got to have really tight focus on grade level instruction. You may hear us sometimes call that tier 1 instruction. We've provided, again, for you in the community a bit of a definition there, but that means if you're in 4th grade, as that little girl was on our growth chart in the earlier slide, like, are we teaching you 4th grade things? Even if you're below grade level on some things, you still have a right, and we still owe you on grade level instruction. Like, we've got to teach you fourth grade content to at all expect you to be ready for fifth grade. Yes, we have to provide you supports if there are gaps that we have to close, but the research is super clear. Like, if you're missing out on grade level instruction, you are missing out, period. And that is what we are working every day to avoid being true in our classrooms. A bit more specifically, as we think about, okay, so what happens next? We have specific things that we are doing, campus leaders are doing, and teachers are doing. And I'll start with the teachers. The most important thing that they're doing right now with this data is understanding those boundaries for each student. Like, what does Derek know and what does he not know? So I can start grouping my students in the classroom, because this group really needs support on foundational mathematics skills. This group really needs support on understanding concepts of fractions, whatever that may be, right? So like, teachers are starting to group students based on the data to meet those specific student needs. They're also having to ensure that the student is receiving that on grade level tier 1 instruction, but we're connecting them to other supports and interventions as needed, whether that's in the classroom or like tutoring after class as well. Campus leaders are having to look for trends and themes across their campus. Like, what grade levels do I really need to focus on? What content areas do I need to push in and provide more support? Am I seeing and reinforcing that tier 1 on grade level instruction? And are we using some of the tools I shared with you last time? Like, are students getting access to the Lexia supports for literacy? Are they using Zern and Mathia for math to make sure that they're getting all of the chances possible to accelerate their growth? And then we're obviously looking at this across the district and campus by campus to see where we need to provide more support, whether that's going in and modeling things for a teacher, whether that's supporting professional learning communities at a school to help those get stronger, understanding how this informs the professional learning that we provide more broadly, and then just operationally and logistically smoothing the path a little bit for literally what the experience is like when they come back and take the middle of year assessment, to make sure that's an easier process both for students and for campus leaders. But this is our summary of where we are, a bit of insight into what we're doing to respond to it, and we of course are more than happy to take questions.
Dr. Little, can I just add one more thing? For us at Central Office, we are actually convening tomorrow to talk about what this looks like as we share it with parents. And so this will come as a rollout as we roll out our STAR scores, because we want our parents to not only know how our students did on STAR, but because, again, as you heard from the presentation, Mr. Duque said that what we're seeing here is beginning of year. And so we're seeing beginning of year looking very similar to what we looked like end of year, right? Which was not shocking to us, right? Because end of year, beginning of year, not so different, right? And so we'll only see growth from here. But we want our parents to see holistically, here's where your kids were on STAR, here's where they are beginning of year on MAP, and what that means, right? We also want to then also begin conversations about, what does tutoring look like, right? What does attendance look like for your children at this point? Because we've got after-school programs to not only talk about tutoring, but recovering those attendance minutes that your children have been missing, right? And what does that mean in terms of instruction, right? We want to also talk about why we're doing ADSE and why we've got that extended year calendar, because we've got kids who are not yet at grade level, who are not meeting grade level standards. And so we want to start doing sense making with our parents about how all of this fits together as we have conversations about meeting grade level, mastering grade level, and beyond. And so we're convening tomorrow about how we're messaging all of this to our parents, and going back to Ms. Perez's presentation about asking our campuses within the next couple of weeks before the second 6 weeks ends to host a parent night, and having conversations with our parents about these reports and about the STAR data and about the MAP data at each campus. So I wanted to preview that we're going to be having those conversations and helping our campuses plan those parent nights in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Members of the board, do we have any questions for Dr. Little, Ms. Flores, or Mr. Duque?
Kind of on the same topic as Dr. Sorensen was mentioning, once the parents do get this map data for their children, will there be resources that are available to them to kind of help their children at home?
Yeah, absolutely. So we showed you some report samples on a couple of slides ago. There's actually a family report as well that's available in English and Spanish, so it can help explain and walk through, here's where your student is and here's what this means. And as we shared, I think at the last board meeting, we've now launched a whole set of at-home curriculum supports that families can have. So if my child isn't quite where they want to be, in 5th grade science, I can go on there and see what I can be doing at home with them to support their learning in science. And we have that for pre-K to 8th grade in every content.
Thank you.
And how's that going, Dr. Little? I mean, how are the parents receptive to those types of services that are available to them?
I think we're seeing like early implementation of that. So with the parent nights, we will have a much better indication of how much are people sort of taking up on this opportunity. We're doing some more work to like push this out and make sure folks are aware. But I think we believe, underlying what the superintendent said, that if we can be in the room side by side with the parent, really talking them through and making sure they know where this is and how to use it, that'll be the most effective way that we actually see, I hate to use this word, but like implementation of it. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw something out. Page 14, I'm curious, when we were talking about the 46%, and we didn't have that back in January, you'll come back with a number, right? So I'm just going to throw this out, right? So we have 46. What would be a good number for us to see in January? I mean,
if I could get
what would you want to see? I mean, we're not going to see 80, right?
Super nerdy for a second. We would actually pull it up.
I want you to be on record. Not on record, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, so what we see nationally in MAP, again, if a student meets 50th percentile growth, which means they just grew on average enough to hold where they are, they're going to stay at the 46. Coming out of COVID, there was some research done actually by NWEA to understand what is aggressive yet reasonable growth. That starts to get closer to the 60th percentile. I think once you see anything above the 65th percentile, like it's an outlier. That's really a lot of individual growth for a student. One of the super cool things about this is a student can actually sit with their family or with their teacher, and there's a toggle feature in here. They can say, okay, if I want to move from the 46th percentile to the 52nd, how much growth do I need? And so there's ways that they can play with that to start to have goal setting conversations.
I think one of the other cool slides to go to is the linking study. It's one of my favorite reports in MAP. So if you look at MAP growth fall and see where it says the 204 to 213, and it says 204 to 213 fall meets, right? And so this is where, as a parent, I would always go, right, if I'm trying to project where my child would need to be. If you look 204 to 213, winter, notice that 203 to 215 falls back to approaches, right, if you now go to winter. So if you want to see where your child needs to be, right, in order to stay in meets, your child needs to now be in the 211 to 220. And those are RIT scores, those aren't percentiles, right? But as you learn RIT scores and what scores your children are coming home with, right? When my child would come home with these scores, I would say, like, okay, so in order to stay to meets or in order to move over to masters, where do you need to be in order to keep progressing on STAR? And not that STAR is the North Star, STAR is the floor, not the ceiling. But that's another way to also look at growth per se, as you're linking it to STAR performance. And so that's another way for us to also track and monitor growth, is through the linking study.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Do we have any questions for Ms. Flores, Mr. Duque, or Dr. Little?
I do.
Go ahead, Dr. Camargo.
Briefly, Dr. Little, thank you for the information, but I have a question. I mean, these are very individualized profiles, which is excellent per student, right? But an average class, how many students do we have? 20, 26?
It depends on the grade level. Most of our elementary grades are around 20-ish.
Okay, and I just want to see if you feel the district has enough resources. I know it answered my question, this slide, it's not numbered, but where you talk about the next step in supporting implementation, which is good. I just want to make sure that the teachers feel that there are adequate resources available. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of students with very individualized profiles that are going to need a lot of individualized attention. Which is what this does, obviously, but in order for every student to progress significantly, it's going to require that individualized attention. I just want to make sure that we're all comfortable that the resources available, whether it's extra tutoring, other interventions, are enough and sufficient.
My answer to that is yes, and I'm going to sort of break that down in a few ways. As I shared last time, we've put better resources and new tools in the hands of teachers to help with this. So whether that is the Tier 1 level curriculum, whether that is the additional supports through the Zern, Matthew, Alexia, those sort of resources, we've taken some of the guesswork and I have to go figure it out on my own and said, no, this is best in class, let's use it. And we every week are actually reinforcing with principals, are we seeing usage at the level that we should? Are people making the most of the time that they're supposed to have? Are students progressing in the lessons or milestones that they need to see? The other thing I would say about MAP, and we didn't touch on this tonight, I briefly mentioned it in the last discussion, teachers, even before MAP existed, had to figure out, okay, if you're 20 students in my class, how am I going to meet your 20 individual needs? What does that look like individually, and what does that look like in terms of groups that I'm doing? What's beautiful about this is it takes a whole bunch of the homework out of it, and it actually tells you, hey, you need to group, Little, Flores, and Duque together because they're all struggling with the same thing, and not only do you need to group them together, it's telling you specifically what standard you need to work on with them and is making some recommendations that you can do with those students. So I would say, yes, it's a new thing to learn, but it's actually simplifying much of the process that you've got to go through to understand what comes next.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Margot. Great tool. I mean, no doubt that this is a great tool. Dr. Little, like always, you Duque, and Ms. Flores always seem to provide us with very informative and educational information, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Do we have any other further questions for staff?
Yeah, I do have another one.
Go ahead.
Dr. Little, how often do teachers cross-collaborate in schools, right? So 8th grade teachers in Memorial Middle School, how often are they talking to teachers at Richards Middle School? And tell me a little bit about that, right? I'm assuming that 8th grade teachers or for other grade levels are having similar conversation or maybe similar questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's an expectation that we have, I said, sort of supporting professional learning communities, and one of the things that's our follow-up, that should be happening within your school, within your grade level and content every week. And that's part of what we're helping principals improve their work around. Across schools, our team who never gets enough credit, who's sitting, instead of on my back left tonight, they're on my back right. They actually every week create space for teachers to come together virtually to engage in, whether it's a question answer, we call them office hours, but I can come bring my questions and I can talk not only to our content expert, but I can engage with other teachers across the district in that space as well.
Awesome. And then is there a repository where teachers probably can refer back to that information that's being asked on a weekly basis?
Yeah, we have essentially curriculum folders that we share with teachers. So if you're an 8th grade science teacher, you know where to go see your 8th grade science resources. So anytime we're adding new materials to that, that's where it is to help ensure that they've got the most up-to-date resources and information possible.
Thank you.
Great questions, Secretary Peña. Any further questions?
No, sir.
Ms. Flores, Mr. Duque, Dr. Little, thank you very much for this informative and, of course, this educational presentation you guys just made. Very informative. We look forward to the report in January. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a consent. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, our next item on the agenda is our closed session. Under Texas Government Code 551.001, 551.071, 551.071, 551.129, 551.074, 551.072, 551.076, 551.021 concerning any and all purposes permitted by the Act, including but not limited to the sections and purposes of. We are now going into closed session, and it's 7:04 p.m. We are back from the closed session. It is 8:37 p.m. Next item on the agenda is item 10.1, approval of policy update 122. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 10.1, approval of policy update 122.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is 10.2, approval of National Principals Month, October 2024. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the item.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Following item is 10.3, which is consider and take action to approve the termination of employees on term contracts. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 10.3.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The following item is agenda item 10.4, consider and take action regarding the superintendent's recommendation for the proposed termination of term contract employees. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the proposed termination of term contract employees as discussed in closed session.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is agenda item 11, which is our calendar items. For the record, October 11, 2024 will be a school holiday. There will be no classes. 11.2, October 14, 2024, bad weather day, no classes. October 16, 2024, special called board meeting, student recognitions. October 23rd, 2024, regular board meeting. Board members, do I have any comments regarding any of those dates? Seeing that we don't have none, let's go to item number 12, which is Dr. Sorensen's remarks. Do you have any remarks, Dr. Sorensen, before we close?
Yes, really quickly. First and foremost, I want to really lean in and thank Ms. Gomez-Perez and the entire athletics department, health services department, and Ms. Blanca, the communications department, for what was an absolutely fantastic experience Saturday at our cancer awareness walk. The entire community just came out in just incredible numbers. It was outstanding. I really want to thank our board members who were there with us. Your presence there really made it special. It was really special for me to have you there side by side. You, Dr. Hernandez, was there as well. It just was an incredible event, and having our community there, cabinet members being there. Mr. Munoz, I swear I was going to make you take off that windbreaker and walk. But it was incredible, and just the unity, the love, the pride, and our survivors. It just was an incredible event, and so thank you for your hard work, and thank you to our survivors. We honor you, we cherish you, and I just love the community and the love that existed in that space. So thank you for leading that for us. Secondly, I do really want to lift up our principals. You are just incredible humans. I think I must have said it 100 times in our meeting. Leadership is the lever of change. Leadership is the lever of change. Leadership is the lever of change. And without you, everything that we just discussed in the MAP data is not possible. Our teachers, what they do in the classroom matters so much every single day, but you create the environment for our teachers to do their magic. And so principals, I think I said this to you 100 times in the last 2 weeks when I've seen you. Happy National Principals Month. We really do appreciate you and all that you do and all that you will continue to do to lead our district to the next level of excellence. because educational excellence is the right of every single student in this district. And lastly, to the entire district, please note the 2 days that our president just announced on the calendar, October 11th and October 14th. I lovingly like to call these 2 days our fall break. And so everybody in our entire district, please lean in and enjoy those 2 days and have a wonderful, well-deserved long weekend. You all deserve it. You've worked really hard for it. And please, please, please enjoy yourself, enjoy your families, and get some very well-deserved rest.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Do any of the board members have anything to add before we adjourn? No. Seeing that we have none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn this meeting at 8:43 p.m.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.